It's so touching to hear that story of the depth of feeling and connection between the two of them, and also, of course, to hear Swamiji read it. Then we have his feeling in it as well, and it's something we can all relate to, because when we come onto the spiritual path, as Dharmini was saying, when each of us, when we find our guru, in some cases it's very dramatic, and in other cases it sort of creeps in. We sort of came in not even realizing we were looking for a guru, and then suddenly found that maybe only at the time of taking discipleship that this was actually what I've been looking for. Dharmini and I were talking the other day with a group, and this idea came up about how Ananda was so much more than any of us had envisioned. In other words, when I joined Ananda and joined this spiritual path and found Master, it was the answer to dreams of mine I hadn't even expressed, I hadn't even thought possible. Swamiji put it in a similar way, that he sorry, I got distracted by that thing flashing. Do you want to see what that chat is? I always am worried that the microphone is muted or something. Okay, well,
that's on your end.
I'm not sure what to do about that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if the sound is low, sorry, we have it as loud as we can from our side. I can try to put this more in front of me, but it's a little awkward. Sorry, our microphone stand is broken. So the Swami said that all he was ever looking for was at most maybe inner peace, and couldn't believe all the joy that he found in coming to this path. So for those of you in the Wednesday class too, in the Holy Science, it's nice to round out this picture of Sri Yukteswar and have some of his consciousness, his writings that way too during this time. These next clips that we're going to watch are taken from the film Awake. They are archival clips of Master's trip to India in 1935 and 36. So we see him with Sri Yukteswar in various scenes, including at the end of Sri Yukteswarji's life when they were at the Puri ashram after he had left the body. So we'll watch that now. It was interesting that in Autobiography of a Yogi, Master said 25 years elapsed before he had another proof of Sri Yukteswarji's love. And we heard Master just minutes before saying in that audio clip that he made Sri Yukteswar say, "I love you." It's written in Autobiography of a Yogi too, but it was nice that we heard that as well. In the original recording, Master says, he said, "I forced him to say it. I was very cruel." And for some reason, that very cruel was edited out, but that's how Master put it. And he said, and Sri Yukteswarji cried because he forced him to say it. But, of course, it wasn't that he was hurting Sri Yukteswar. It was just as he said, his lips were strange to ardor. And Sri Yukteswar said, "Must I bring out into cold speech the warm sentiments best guarded by a wordless heart?" But Master basically said, "Yes, you must." So, okay, we'll watch these clips now.
It's really wonderful seeing those clips all together. And for those of us who have been to Puri and been able to see the ashram, you saw how, I'm sorry if it was a little shocking to see Sri Yukteswarji having left the body. It wasn't just the end of his life, it was the end of his life. It wasn't at the end of his life, it was after the end of his life. Of course, not his astral life or causal life in his case, I'm sure. So after he left the body, you saw how they put him in the ground, and the shrine that is on the Puri property where we go and meditate, we sit on the stairs or we sit around the house, and a few people at a time are allowed inside the shrine, and that shrine is built on top of Sri Yukteswarji's body. So It's a very sacred, holy ground. Even though he's not in the body, the body of a saint is considered a relic and full of spiritual vibrations. So we all got to have the experience of meditating there, and we like to go to Puri periodically. We have wonderful meditations on the beach, and it's a nice time. And the weather was pretty nice the last time we were there. So we have next, Swamiji is going to read from the New Path, and in parallel with Master describing his discipleship or his meeting with his guru, Swamiji now describes his meeting with his guru master. And it's also very, very touching. If you notice, when Swamiji is reading these books on tape, you'll notice at times his voice gets a little shaky, and that's when he's been overwhelmed with bliss, and his heart is so touched by the preciousness and sacredness of the experience that he's reading about. And so you can hear his voice break. He's not weeping from sadness. It's divine joy. It's divine bliss that he's in while he's reading it. So it's very special to have his voice reading these things. So next we'll go ahead and listen to Swamiji reading about his meeting with Master.
It's so beautiful to hear Swamiji share that story, and in addition to, for example, giving his experience with Master that all of us can experience through him, since we didn't have the opportunity to meet Master in person, it's wonderful how he involves us in this experience rather than simply saying, this is what happened to me and sorry for you all. This was in fact how Swamiji wrote the whole New Path, the book, and how he always taught. It was always including people in his experiences with Master, and also as a true disciple, guiding everyone to Master and helping them to experience as much as possible what he experienced with Master, rather than trying to claim any of that to himself. And so it's sweet too how Master, when initiating Swamiji, spoke of his relationship with Sri Yukteswarji, and Sri Yukteswarji, in initiating Master as a disciple, spoke of his relationship with Lahiri Mahashaya. And so it really helps us have that sense of connectedness with all of our gurus. Also, really, just the fact that all these years later, it's nearly 70 years later, more than 70 years later, 72 years later, that this meeting between Swamiji and Master occurred. And here we are, dedicating this morning to celebrating that. The actual date was September 12th, and we can look forward to that celebration as well. But Swamiji also referred to September 12th as his birthday, spiritually, that is, he would say. So just as his birthday of his body on earth is coming, he referred to this September 12th as his spiritual birthday. And as it was for him, so it was for all of us, because it was really, of course, through Swamiji that all of us have come to know Master, really. Because it isn't only, when you read a book, you have only your own consciousness to relate to that book. For example, Autobiography of a Yogi, Master's vibrations also, of course, so it's not just our consciousness, but when we have the example, the stories, and again, really the living expression of Master's teachings, as we have in Swamiji as his close, direct disciple, it adds so much more power, not only to intellectual understanding, but also to really our experience of that spiritual power, something we feel. So, and as we've been saying, but it bears repeating, that we're so fortunate here in Chennai to have had Swamiji come here and say there must be a center here. And that's how each one of us came to this path in this form and were brought together. And so really that was his gift to each one of us directly and personally. And so we have that connection as well.
So all I can really say, in addition, is ditto. Everything is, I'm in so much agreement with Dharmarajan on everything he said. And it's such a special day. When we were preparing these recordings yesterday for today, there was such a high vibration and such a beautiful feeling from Sri Yukteswarji. We love to celebrate the holidays of Ananda, and those are all the Guru's birthdays and Mahasamadhis. Of course, we can't celebrate Babaji's birthday because we don't know when that was, and he's the deathless Guru. So we just have a day, as in addition to every day in our hearts, a Babaji commemoration day on July 25th. But it's so wonderful to be able to celebrate each of these gurus' birthdays and Mahasamadhis and get to know them, get to tune into them. And many people have beautifully tuned into Sri Yukteswarji, especially in the past couple years. I think going to Puri helped us all. Studying the holy science as best we can. There's that scripture, well, his book is like scripture. It's so, so deep. Just a few sentences here and there really take you deep. And I wanted to just read one of his quotes, which we can never forget. He says, "Forget the past. The vanished lives of all men are dark with many shames, but everything in future will improve if you are making the right spiritual effort now." Those words are like magic because he's just saying, look, what matters is what we do from here forward, and we don't need to look back and feel regret about our lives. Instead, make a good spiritual effort now, and we'll reap the benefits in the future. And don't worry about the bad karmas that we encounter because of past behavior. So that I've always found that quote very soothing and comforting, and it's such a forgiving quote. But last night we felt such a love flowing from him, and of course, we have the version of him that's in Autobiography of a Yogi when he's in his body, which is he was a rather stern taskmaster to master. And as Swamiji pointed out, a lot of it was training for master who was to encounter a lot of criticism in the future. And so it kind of helped give him perhaps a thicker skin. Hard to know because so much of what's written in Autobiography of a Yogi is very much for our benefit because he was an avatar. So what was his training actually? I doubt he forgot his past life as Arjuna when he was trained by Krishna. And so all of these things, though, that book is filled with vibrations that allow us to learn from that book, to learn how to be disciples, to learn how to have a guru, how to behave, how to open our hearts and love God. So anyway, we really wish you a happy birthday for Sri Yukteswar, as well as a continued month in celebration of Swamiji's life.